The Center for Educational Media and the College of Education at Middle Tennessee State University are proud to offer professional development to K-12 educators in Tennessee through our online video library. The following video is presented by the Center for Educational Media in partnership with Professional Educators of Tennessee's Leader U Conference. For more professional development videos, check out our website at www.mtsu.edu/CEM.
Hello, welcome to our remote conference on eSports is STEM. We're delighted to have Dr. Katrina Adkins, who's the Director of Education Solutions at SHI, as well as an eSports gamer professor at Post University, Shenandoah University, and the University of Alaska. Katrina began her career over 20 years ago as a kindergarten teacher. Through her 20-plus years, she has taught kindergarten, first and third grade, K-5 computers, K-9 science, 9-12 personal branding and coding concepts, and also is the Director of Technology. She has presented for Leader U in the past, and I know what a dynamic speaker she is, and I'm just absolutely thrilled that she's able to join us. I am going to put myself on mute so they can hear you big, loud, and clear.
Thank you, everyone. I am so excited to virtually see all of you, and I'm so sorry that I am not there in person. I'll explain in a moment just a little bit more about that and why I couldn't be there in person with you today. To start us off, I want to just kind of give you an idea of where I come from, a little bit more about me and who all these people are that are on the screen that you're seeing. Bethany gave an amazing introduction, and thank you so much, Bethany, if you're still in there. So she introduced me as the Director of Education Strategy for a company called SHI. And SHI is based in New Jersey, so I do work remotely. I'm actually in Chattanooga and have taught in the state of Tennessee for a number of years. So very well connected across the state and love hearing what's going on, and especially love sharing about esports. But you see here on the screen all these different people, and these are the people that make up the esports team at the company that I work for. So on the top row are our education strategists. So most of us are still educators. You heard Bethany speak a little bit to my experience in education, and I do still teach. I teach for 3 different universities. I teach esports and gaming at the college level, but came from the K-12 side of things. So I started 20 some years ago as a kindergarten teacher, and I taught anything from kindergarten, first grade, third grade. I taught K-5 computers. I was a technology integrationist. I taught 6 through 8 computer science. I taught 9 through 12 personal branding and coding. I was a director of technology, and now with SHI. And just so you know, SHI is a technology solutions company. So we work with all of the K-12 schools and higher education schools across the nation. And I actually do some work within our company in the UK and Canada as well on the side of esports. So we're very busy. And I'll give you an idea as we go through just a little bit about what we do and how that maybe pertains to what you're doing as a teacher or as an integrationist in your own schools. So about me, I know Bethany gave the great introduction. I told you a little bit about me, but I wanted to just speak a little bit to my personal life, which will answer some questions on why I'm not there in person today. But I mainly wanted to speak to me as a mom. So I have 2 kids, and one is 18. He'll actually be going off to University of Tennessee in Knoxville in the fall. He is just came back from percussion camp this past weekend, so he will be in the Pride marching band. I'm really excited for him. And then my daughter, who's 16, and she's a volleyball player, but they are both gamers, and they have been for as long as I can remember. And I share this with you to kind of give you an idea on where I come from and the lens that I see esports through. Besides just the company that I work for, besides just being a teacher, I also am a mom of gamers. So I kind of see it from that parent perspective as well. So I remember when my son was, I think, 7 years old, and that's when he came to me and said, I want to start a YouTube channel, Mom. I want to be a streamer. And so often, if we ask our students in the classroom, what do you want to be when you grow up? A lot of them will say, I want to be a famous YouTuber or a streamer or a gamer. And that's something that may be new to you. And as an educator, how do we support the students that this is their dream? This is what they want to do. And is it valid? Is it something that we can help in schools with? And we'll get to that in more detail. And so when my son came to me at 7 years old and said, I want to make a YouTube channel, I encouraged him. I wanted him to be on YouTube. I wanted to help him get that up and running. I bought all the things that he needed to become a streamer and a gamer. And all the while, my mom, who was a kindergarten teacher for 35 years, she would get on to me and say, Katrina, why is he gaming all the time? And he should be outside playing, and this isn't good for him. And, he was getting straight A's and meeting kids across the world and streaming and gaming and talking with other people. And I just saw it as such a benefit to potentially a future career. And so I started doing a lot of work in my own classroom at that time to bring gaming into it in esports, and which I'll share about more in just a moment. So I want to talk about what is esports. Not to share too many personal things about me, but when I did accept to come and speak, since then my husband has been diagnosed with stage 4 bile duct cancer, and so we are running around the country getting opinions and figuring out what our next steps are, unfortunately. So that is why I am not there in person today, but so wanted to be. And I know you've just probably had the best day. So I am excited to be here though again and talking esports. So let's dig in. What is esports? And I'm going to help define that and also help you kind of seek some maybe answers to some questions you may have about how do you get it started in your school and what does this mean for me as an educator. So I want to start with jumping back actually to the 1970s. And esports was actually a thing in the 1970s. It actually came about in the 1960s. But there was a game that became very, very popular in the 1970s. And this game, I don't know if any of you remember, if you played this game and want to give a thumbs up or a wave, and this is something that looks familiar to you, this game was called Space Invaders. And this is one of the very first games that came out long ago. And people started meeting up and going to arcades and becoming very competitive in this game. And so when we think about esports or gaming as a whole, although it seemed new to education, it's something that has been going on for many, many years. So if we hop on to the 1980s, this is a movie that I remember watching, and I was just absolutely obsessed with this movie in the 80s. And I don't know if anybody remembers this, but it had Fred Savage, and these kids would go around and they would compete in all of these games. If you do, normally if I was there in person, we would have, I would wonder who knows the name of this, but this was called The Wizard. And these kids would go around and compete, and ultimately they had to compete in Super Mario Brothers 3 to win the ultimate championship, and really started, I think this movie really started the concept of competitive gaming and what it meant to travel around and compete in games. So in the 1990s, when all of the internet started, when we were able to connect, home to home or business to business, school to school, we started having what were called LAN parties. And students would actually bring their big giant computers, whether that they put them in a wheelbarrow, whether they carried them in, but everybody would get together and have these LAN parties and game together. And these are actually still going on today. So students get together and compete in a space to crown the ultimate champion of whatever game it is that they might be playing. And that looks different whether we're talking scholastic esports or pro esports, and we'll get in more into that in just a moment. So one thing that I do want to cover is besides what esports is, what is it not? Because in education, I have seen a lot of misconceptions about what esports is. And I see a lot of educators thinking that this is what our students are doing. So they're in a basement, they have food everywhere, they're not studying, they're up all night playing games, everything's a mess, and why would we want this in schools? When really that's not what's happening. In fact, most of our students and most of the students that I work with are A students. They are ones that are thriving in education because of esports, because of the program that their school has. And I don't want to go into too much detail because we're gonna get to that in just a moment. But so really, what is it? How can we define it? And I came up with some words. So if we take the word esports and we put some letters to it, E for endurance, S for self-esteem, P for problem solving, O for objectives, R for relationships, T for teamwork, and S for stamina. And this might make you think of a few different things, or I hope it does. This makes me think of traditional sports. So these are all different kinds of things that you may get from a traditional sport, such as basketball, football, baseball, hockey, whatever your school may offer. And this is also something that you could get from the arts. We see a lot of students who are in esports who are also in the arts or very musical. In fact, my undergrad, I started as a music major. So I am one example, one case of somebody who is musical. I thought I was going to be a music teacher for the rest of my life. Ended up teaching all sorts of different grade levels, and then now in esports. But I had no idea that's where it was going to lead. But we have a lot of students with a lot of talent that just aren't sure where they fit yet. And so for our students that don't necessarily fit into a traditional sport, like basketball, volleyball, baseball, whatever it is, and for a student who doesn't really fit into the arts, well, maybe they fit in esports. Maybe they are a gamer. But we're going to dig down into what that means, because esports is more than just the game. It's more than just the students that we see with the remote control in their hands or the mouse in their hands. And we're going to look at some of those things. In terms of professional esports, because I want to make sure that there is a known difference really between scholastic esports and professional esports. I don't want to confuse you, but there are differences here. So when we talk about professional esports, think about professional football players, professional basketball players. There are professional esports players. They go, they compete, and most commonly the game or the esport takes form of organized multiplayer online video game competitions where the game is streamed out, or we all get together and have a big LAN like I spoke about earlier. We all get together and compete in one arena or one room. And you kind of see a picture here on the right where this particular team won $30,000. They have their trophy, and it's like professional sports. They have a whole live broadcast like ESPN. It has commentary. It has play-by-play, awards and prize money. There are rivals. So you get two teams, almost like pro football. You get two teams, and they're rivals, and they come at one another, and everybody joins in to see who's going to win. It is incredible. And it has grown so much to the point that there's actually, you can bet now on esports. So if you're into that scene and place bets on traditional sports, you can now place bets on esports as well. But to take it even further, I want to just kind of dig into some numbers. So last year in 2021, there were close to 3 billion players. So 3 billion gamers across the globe. And that was up 5.3% from 2020. So this is how quickly it's growing. Globally, the market will grow and reach $218.7 billion. So this is the esports market. So if we look at professional esports, scholastic esports, the entire market, we're looking at surpassing $220 billion next year. But something that a lot of people don't know is that esports has the second highest viewership, NFL being the first. So if you're a football person and you are, really into pro football, esports has the next highest viewership over baseball, over basketball. Esports is that high up in how much people watch it. You can kind of see some other statistics here. I'm not going to read everything to you, but it gives you a little idea of just how big this market is. So again, when we come back to, but I'm a teacher, I'm an educator, how does this impact me? Well, if this is how large the market is, are we preparing our kids for this market? Do we have a responsibility to prepare our students for this market? Just last year on the cover of esports, or the cover of Sports Illustrated, was an esports team, blurring that line even further between pro sports and esports. This is just how big it's getting. If we look on into some more statistics, this just shows you the global players, the number of players, the growth that has happened since 2015. So when you hear those, your students say, I want to be a famous gamer, I want to be a famous streamer, they see it happening. The only thing is that I will say, and I don't want to crush student dreams, obviously, but if we look at traditional sports, let's take the NFL, for instance. Only about 1% of students go on to a pro sport, to the NFL. It's a very small percentage. It's the same with esports. It's a very small percentage of students who are actually going to go pro and join a pro team. So again, I asked the question, what does that mean for our students? Why, if it's such a small percentage, why do we have such a focus on it? And what is it about esports that can turn it into a STEM/career opportunity? So let's talk about that. I touched a little earlier on when a student doesn't necessarily feel as though they have a place in a traditional sport, or doesn't have maybe a music ability, or isn't into theater or some type of art. They might be into esports. This might be a place for them because of all of the different areas they can shine. So if you look at it here in the middle, we have shoutcasting or broadcasting. Think about those ESPN broadcasters. We have the same thing in esports. We have to have students that are streaming the event. We have to have students that are running that. We have to have students that are setting up the systems, students that are installing games, students that are creating logos, students that are running social media. So it's not just about the students that are gaming, the ones that we see. It's not just about the gameplay, but there's so much happening behind the scenes that you could almost take a class of 30 students and find a job for every one of those students. So to break that down even further, we can look at this in two different ways. When we're talking, let's just narrow it down to scholastic esports. Let's take the pro out of it. When we're looking at scholastic esports, we have to have organizers for the tournaments, and we have to have content creators. So what is a part of that? If I'm really into content creation, how might I get started on that? Well, remember at the very beginning in that Nearpod, I asked you if your school or county has a club, or do they have a program? because these are very different things. And a lot of schools start off with a club, which is fine. A club may consist of after school. So it might be an after school activity where students come together and they game for fun. Maybe they stream it out. Maybe they're on a platform called Twitch and Discord, and they stream out the game on there so that others can watch them play. Or maybe you're in a school that has a full-blown esports program that allows for classes to take place during the day. And if this is something that's brand new to you, this is happening all over the country, where esports is becoming a part of the day. So if we think about the title of the session, esports is STEM. They are embedding, schools are embedding esports into the curriculum that's already happening. So when you take our science, technology, engineering, and math courses that are already going on, they're embedding esports into those, as well as into CTE courses. So CTE being career and technical education. It's a great way to embed esports into the day by taking what we're already doing and not recreating the wheel, but bringing esports into that. How can we not, with it being this big of a market, with it being this multi-billion-dollar industry, how can we not bring this into STEM and give students the opportunity to maybe go into a career in esports, or even go into college and study esports? We're going to get to that in just a moment. So coming back to these content creators, perhaps they take a course in high school on that. Maybe that course even has a certification. Maybe it has a dual enrollment or a dual credit. Or if you're an IB school, maybe it can count towards college credit, or even give them some type of a certification so they can go right into a job after high school. If they're a content creator, it's helping them build these skills. So we're looking at step 3 now under content creators. It helps them build these skills, understand social media and relevant content creation that they can be working on. So I'm going to step back because I said social media. So for the company that I work for, we have people that their daily job is to post on social media, not just for esports, but for everything. So if you have a student that is interested in esports and really wants to focus on social media, you're giving them those skills, those marketing skills, those social media skills to build a career out of. It's amazing how much esports can give to students. And then when we look at step 4 under content creation, we have graphic designers, content directors, journalists, writers, videographers. So for John in the room, our videographer, if you could go back to school, you could actually get a job in esports, or maybe you already have one, I don't know. But you could be a videographer for esports tournaments. You could be a video game developer, or maybe even a production coordinator. When we look at organizers, because with esports, there's events that we have to put on. So how can we work with our students to teach them how to organize events? Well, again, we can go back to step 1. We can have courses that help them learn how to create events. And there's some examples of some courses here. We can connect those back to CTE certifications, back to dual enrollment, dual credit, and give them credit for these courses so they are ready to go out the gate out of high school and into college or into a career in esports or in one of these areas. With these skills, they can start to build on any of these areas so that they can go into one of those jobs, such as cybersecurity, which is huge right now. They can become an event planner, an interior designer, which, by the way, remember I said that my daughter is 16 years old. She is very into Sims. So if you've ever been in Sims, Sims is, you have these little people and you can design homes and design skyscrapers and worlds. And I could see my daughter almost going into interior design because of the work she does in Sims. It's incredible the amount that you can learn. They can become project managers, team general managers. They can become venue coordinators and community organizers. All of this through esports. To take it even further, and I'm going to leave this up here in case you want to take a picture of this, or I did not create this. I cannot take credit for this, but there are several of these different graphics that are floating around, just so you know. But these are currently esports related professions that are out there. I'll give you a moment just to look at these, because some of these are unheard of positions. They didn't exist just a few years ago. These are new jobs that are out there, new developments for students. So when we say we're preparing our students for the future, when we say we're preparing our students for careers in STEM, careers in CTE, or we're preparing them to go on to college, are we affording them all of these opportunities? So if you are a teacher and esports is something that you're interested in getting started at your school, I would love to help you in any way get started, because it is just so important that we make sure that we let students know that they are needed in the industry. Industry partners and developers are looking for students with these skills to hire, whether that be an internship straight out of high school or after college or during college even. So last weekend, we went up to Rider University to help support an organization called Garden State ESports. Garden State ESports is the K-12 side of esports for the state of New Jersey. There is a guy up there, his name's Chris Aviles. He runs Garden State ESports, and Tennessee has an affiliate just like Garden State ESports. So if you are interested to learn more about the Tennessee affiliate, I would love to email you or get together with you on a call, or however. We'll talk about that more later. But I wanted to give you an idea of what it looks like in person for a student to come to an event and be a part of a tournament. This footage is from the winter event, but we just had the spring tournament. And so it looks very, very similar to this.
Here we go.
And they ultimately compete for this belt that Garden State Esports has. If you remember at the beginning of the presentation, I put up some words that represent each letter of esports, and you see every one of those words represented in that video. You see the excitement, you see the stamina, you see the sportsmanship, students coming together to celebrate something that they are just so excited about, and also utilizing skills that they can build upon, not just for somebody to become a pro esports player, but for a career. So Chris, who actually was at the very beginning of that video, who organizes Garden State Esports, it was amazing. He teaches middle school. He actually had the first middle school esports program in the country. What was so amazing this past weekend was that Chris was walking around where the area was, and he almost had nothing to do. He's the esports coach, he's the teacher, and he's like, I don't have anything to do, because the students ran it all. They ran the broadcast, they ran the shoutcasting station, they ran everything, they set everything up. And that is a well-oiled machine. That is a teacher who wants to give their students all the skills that he can give so that their students are successful not just as a gamer, but as somebody going into a career in one of these areas. So it was absolutely amazing to see. So if you remember, I expressed interest in wanting to help all of you get your program started. And if you already have a program started, I would love to help you build on that program. The esports team is happy to help you at any stage that you're at, whether it's I don't know that much about esports, all the way to, yeah, we have a program, but we don't necessarily have a field to play on. So when you take traditional sports, football, basketball, baseball, they all have fields to play on, right? When they come to school and they are a part of a sport, they have a court to play on, they have a field to play on. But what about our esports students? Where is their field? Where is their space? Where do they get to come in and practice and really develop those skills that they can take on into a career? So we started years ago, started developing esports arenas or spaces in schools. All the spaces that we develop are research-based. They are, it takes a lot of work to go in and develop these spaces. We take the, of course, dimensions of the room, we take the colors of the schools, and we design these spaces. We bring in the furniture, we bring in, sledgehammers, whatever's needed. We redo all the HVAC, we do the wiring, we redo the networks in schools, but to ultimately bring our esports student a field to play on or a space to play in. So this was one of our builds. This actually, and I'm showing it off because this was at my husband's school. He's a director of technology, the one that I told you that has cancer. This is the space that we partnered with his district to help design. And I will show you the real live pictures of it. But this is the design that we came up with, just to show you. It's going to move a little bit here so you can see it. Within these designs, of course, we have to figure out how many stations do we want in here? How are we going to soundproof it? What kind of lighting do we want? What kind of broadcasting station do we want, which you're going to see over in the corner there? You'll see that there. Do they want a green screen for broadcasting? What about mics and audio and lighting? And how are we going to create the ambiance of esports? Because you see behind me, I have some LED lighting just to create, that feel. And students love that. When they walk into that space, that's the feel that they want. So how can we create that for students? And I just wanted to show you a couple of designs here that we did and that are actually in place today and built. We have dozens of them around the country, but this was one I just wanted to kind of show to you. Here's the broadcast station over here that you see in the corner, and this allows students to broadcast the stream, to create the stream. I think they now have a green screen in that space, but I'll show you some real life pictures from it as well. So here's the actual space, and I didn't get great pictures. I went in there real quick, took some pictures, but you notice in their broadcasting station, they now have lights. They've got some other additions. Over here, they have a new LED light on the wall. They have, I believe, a green screen that they set up. I don't know if it's in this video or not. You can kind of see the lighting over there. All the microphones, the point of view cameras so that they can be streaming. There's a lot of moving parts to these spaces, but this is what a field looks like. Now, you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, if I went back to my principal or I went to my superintendent, they would laugh. They would say, we don't have money to do this. And that's valid. We get that all the time. But one of the reasons that we like to wrap esports into STEM is because we help schools find STEM grants, STEM and CTE grants, to help them build these spaces. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But the funding doesn't have to come out of a budget that's there. We can help you find those grants to help build these spaces, and that's what a lot of our schools do. Very exciting. So to show you another one that we built, now this is for higher education. So you're sitting on MTSU's campus right now, and I am so sad that I was not able to be there, mainly because my son has gone there and says that their chocolate milk at MTSU is amazing. That's what I heard. So I wanted to get some chocolate milk today and was unable to do that. So, but I have not seen if MTSU has an esports space. So if you get the chance to find out or hop over to wherever their esports space might be, grab some pictures. I would love to see if they do have a space there or a team. I would love to learn more about that. But I wanted to share with you what a college space might look like. So same idea. This was a rendering that we did for a college space. This was in Connecticut, and this exists in person today. So the reason that I show you a higher education space is because I want to um, allow the opportunity for your minds to go beyond K-12 and what students can expect when they go into a college. And this also gives you an idea of the type of colleges that students are applying to. And I'm going to give you an example. So I was working with a superintendent whose son had a full ride to a university for baseball. His son turned down the full ride to go to a university with esports. The student wanted to game. The student wanted to major in esports, and yes, major in it. There are universities and colleges that have majors and minors in esports. Students are looking for this. We work with the one that you saw on here. This was post-university, and I'll go ahead and click onto the next slide here. They had their official ribbon cutting for that exact space that you saw in April. And they do have two separate spaces. So you saw their competition space, and then you saw their practice area, just like a real sport. You have a field for football field for practice, football field for competition. Same thing with esports. So they had their ribbon cutting, opened it up, and it was just phenomenal to see. And this so happens to be the university that I teach for as well. So I teach courses for post-university. When what happened was they had called upon our company to help them build this space. And once they heard that, you know, I was so into esports and that I had taught for years and was an adjunct professor, they said, hey, you want to do some teaching for us? And I said, absolutely. So so it's been wonderful to have that partnership and to teach for them. So I think my dream is to hopefully at some point teach for a school in Tennessee once, well, if its school ever gets some maybe online adjunct positions up. But anyway, so just wanted to kind of show you and give you an idea of what's going on in higher education. It's very important for K-12 and higher education to talk, especially around STEM, CTE, esports, because there is so much movement in this market and field. And we have to make sure that we're talking early with our students, as early as elementary school. And I probably should have mentioned that earlier. We have schools, elementary schools, that are bringing esports into their schools, not just high schools, not just middle schools. It is now going down to elementary. And you may ask the question of, well, are our elementary students old enough to compete or run this type of tournament? Or, what about some of these games that are out there? Well, there are games for elementary students. There's plenty of games that are Minecraft, Rocket League, plenty of games out there that elementary students are already familiar with and can compete in. So let's talk a little bit more about opportunities with the higher education. And one of the reasons that I wanted, again, why I wanted to point out higher education is because of all the opportunities within universities and colleges that are out there right now. There are close to 300 colleges and universities that are now offering esports scholarships and esports opportunities for students. Yes, scholarships. They are paying for students to come to their university or college to play esports, just like a traditional sport. There's 4 examples here. The next slide, I think I have post-university on, but just 4 examples around the country that you can take a look at that offer scholarships. They're everywhere. They offer majors, minors, certificates in esports. So if it's something that maybe your own child might be interested in, or something that you think one of your students might be interested in, check it out. If you do a quick Google search for colleges that are offering scholarships, you'll get about 300 right now and growing of opportunities for students. With post-university, the one that I teach for, I just wanted to give you an example of what their degree looks like. So they have a Bachelor's of Science in Gaming and Esports Management. So a student can graduate college and go right into the industry of esports management. But this also gives them the opportunity to maybe go off and do something in game design or game development or project management, or maybe they want to become a coach, or maybe they want to broadcast. They don't have to go into necessarily esports management, but it gives them all of these opportunities. Remember the slide that had all the different careers on there? This will allow for students to go into some of those different careers. They also have a Master's of Science in Gaming and Esports, and a lot more colleges are coming out with Masters in Esports. It is valid, it is relevant, and it is growing. So to not talk about it, I think would it would be a disservice for our students. And I really want to get the message out to education, both K-12 and higher education, that students are interested in this. They're turning down full scholarships to other sports and other areas to go to a school that offers esports. Someone that works at the same company as me, his son had decided by his freshman year in high school he was not going to college. That was just not for him, and that's okay. Not everybody has to go to college. But he's now a senior in high school and just graduated and decided, you know what, I am going to go to college and I want to major in esports. So now he's going on, and had this opportunity not been there for his son, I don't know what he would be doing now, but just kind of another example, a feel-good example. Right before this presentation began, so it was about 3 o'clock, no, 2 o'clock today. I'm on Eastern time, so about 2 o'clock today, I did a search. Just real quick, I went to Google and I searched esports jobs. 1,700 jobs came up. This was just today, and this is one search engine, just one. 1,700 jobs across our country for students to go into that are ready today. So students that are coming out of high school with the skills, so you see here early careers, if they come out of high school with these skills, they can go right into a job. If they're coming out of college with more advanced skills in this area, there's jobs for them. It is absolutely incredible. So I highly encourage you to just do some Google searches. Just check out how many jobs are out there. This is just on Indeed. I also did another job search on LinkedIn that brought up thousands of jobs. So if you've heard the expression, we are teaching to the future, or teaching for students to go into jobs that we don't even know about yet, right? We hear people say this all the time. It's true. It is true today. It'll be true tomorrow, that we have to prepare our students to think beyond what's just out there today, to think beyond even a gamer, but to know what's happening behind the scenes so we can get them into those positions and jobs. So I want to talk about you. I want to talk about your ecosystem and what's happening in your schools. So do you see your current program as a club? Does it live in athletics? Does maybe your STEM program coordinator own it? Does it live in the media center? Does it live on its own as just gaming and esports? Or is it another area? Okay, so we have somebody that answered STEM. So right now there's somebody in the room with you that said that their program or club is housed in STEM. And honestly, in the K-12 community, as I mentioned earlier, that is where I see it. I think there's the most opportunity in STEM, in that science, technology, engineering, and math, to bring esports into our schools and to not just create a club, but to create an entire esports program, to create an ecosystem within your school. And so let's talk about what that ecosystem could look like. So within that ecosystem, one way that I can kind of relate this back is by talking about the ecosystem that I currently live in at my job. So within our ecosystem, in order to make esports happen for students around the country, this is what our ecosystem looks like. We have to have marketing, we have to have IT people, we have to have finances, right? Or we couldn't make this happen. And we have to have this team of strategists, which is my team, helping our schools create these spaces and create these programs. So within your own school, what might that look like? Or within your own district or county, what might that look like? Are you in touch with your IT team? How are they going to set up your space for you? Do you have the networking already in place for that? Do you have all the drops, which all the networking wires and everything that has to happen in order to create that space for students? Are the games unblocked in your county or district? Can students even get to Twitch? Can they get to Discord? Can they get to the games? It is so important to work closely with your IT team to make sure that students can even get to all of this stuff. I've had a lot of cases where there have been esports clubs or esports programs, and we've had an educator that means well, that says, I know how great this is for students. I want to start this esports program for students, but they forgot to involve the IT team, or the IT team didn't want anything to do with it. And without the backing of that IT team, it's almost impossible to have a program that is going to function and be sustainable. What about marketing? Who from your district or your county or your school is going to help you market this program to students? How are you going to get students involved? And not only that, how are you going to market to parents that it's safe? Parents often ask great questions. They want to know, what do you mean my student is gaming at school? What do you mean my student could be exposed to, maybe games that they may not approve of? How do we educate parents on that, and how do we market to them? It's extremely important to bring them in on those conversations. And that is one thing that my team does help do with our strategists. So not only does our team build the spaces, but we help schools develop curriculum around esports. We help write programs. We help train teachers and parents on what esports is and what it can do for their children or for your students. And then, of course, financials. If you find a grant, or if our team helps you find a grant, a STEM grant or a CTE grant to get this space in your school, who's going to write that grant? Do you have the support for that? Or do you need the funding or the financials for us to write the grant for you? These are all things to take into consideration. But as you start to build that program, ask yourself, what does my ecosystem look like? And do we have everything in place, or can I start to put it in place so that we can have a sustainable program? A lot of pieces to that puzzle. So one thing I want to share with you is something that we have done at our company. We have created this ecosystem, and we created the nation's first scholastic esports tournament on a professional esports platform. And I'll explain what that means more in just a moment. But to give you an idea, if you are a K-12 teacher, if you are a principal, if you are a superintendent, if you are a esports coach, it doesn't matter. This is free for your students to enter, and they can win a full lab. So those labs that you see, those spaces that you see, they can win one. So they enter into what's called Battle Academy, and they can win all kinds of prizes. So I'll create some excitement around it here. I'll show you.
From there, it just exploded. I could not thought of anything better. That was so beyond what I was thinking this was going to be.
안녕하세요. 애지연자를 후원하는 UGC 배틀 아카데미에 오신 것을 환영합니다.
So we have had an absolute blast creating Battle Academy, working with our partners, bringing this to our K-12 and higher education students across the country, following their esports teams, following the live stream of the tournaments, and cheering them on. So all that excitement you saw in that first video, all the in-person, it all takes place all online. So instead of necessarily, getting students across the country in one space, we get to do it all online. So we have these competitions, whether it's in Rocket League or Valorant or whatever game it may be in. Students come together for the ultimate Battle Academy tournament and championship, and they can win all kinds of prizing. And it is just one of the best things that I've been able to do as an educator, to expose students to a professional tournament platform, to give them this opportunity for it to be free for students to enter. And if I was there with you, I would be asking all kinds of questions with your experience of how your students are entering competitions, or have they been in tournaments? I think one of the things is we never want students to have to pay to be a part of esports. And there's a lot going on in the K-12 community right now, a lot of chatter around how do I get started and what league do I get started in, and my kids don't have the money to be a part of this. We don't want students to have to pay. And so that has been our mission. We've been going across the country trying to help as many schools as possible, either through grants, through Battle Academy, as much as we can. So it's been very, very exciting. So just to kind of connect some pieces a little bit further, 21 years ago, I did my student teaching in Rutherford County. So I was in, Smyrna at, I got to remember the name of the school, oh my gosh, no, I'm going to forget it. I forget the name of the school, but it was an elementary school. And my cooperating teacher was Pam LaRue, and she was amazing. And I did my student teaching in kindergarten. And that's kind of my connection back to Rutherford County. So if there's anyone in Rutherford County there, I did get to teach there. And I also taught in Unionville for a year as well. So feel free to get in touch with any of us. We're here to help you. We are all teachers. We all come from the classroom. We're all either still in the classroom or Lori, for instance, right here, she came from the Department of Education of West Virginia. Melissa is in New Jersey. She was a director of technology. Greg came from Department of Education in New York, and Bradford came from Aldine School District as a director of technology there in Texas. And so we are all here to help, and just so thankful for this time with you today and just to talk esports. It's just one of my favorite things to talk about and to bring to students. So thank you all so much, and please feel free to connect with me at any time.